Hello, good morning, good afternoon, all you cool cats and kittens, or whatever time of day, or wherever you might be listening. It's another episode of Graffiti Park Radio. We got Dan and Dan here.
Hey.
And as always, Miss Anika Jones.
Well, hello.
How y'all doing today?
Doing well.
I'm good.
Good.
Am I a cat or a kitten?
I think a little bit of both. He's a little bit of both.
I do want to say it's cool cats and kittens, so the kittens are cool too. But it's not cool cats, it's cool kittens.
Thank you for letting us know.
Whatever you identify as.
Thank you.
I like that.
In the feline metaverse. Anyway, we're back. Episode 8. It's been a fun ride so far. We're excited. Back in 2025 here. And the last 7 episodes have been a fun journey. We've interviewed some awesome artists, gave them the platform to tell their story, tell us a little bit about their journey, hopefully give some other aspiring artists some tips, tricks of the trade that have helped them get to where they're at. And today it's just us 3, so I'm excited.
The foundation.
The foundation, solid foundation, as we say.
What do you mean
Absolutely.
by that? Why are we the foundation, Dan?
What do I mean by that? So, we had an episode last June where we kind of kicked things off at Graffiti Park Radio. Admittedly, we were a little not loosey-goosey.
Excited.
I'd say on that.
Green.
We were a little green. That's a better way to put it. And so we didn't really cover some of the things we wanted to, but Graffiti Park Foundation, for anyone listening, and for Dan, because he asked me the question, we are a 501c3 nonprofit based here in Las Vegas, but we, our arms reach wherever there's an artist we can help, and our mission is to protect, promote, and progress local artists through unique art opportunities and education. And so Graffiti Park Radio is one of those platforms, programs where we get to elevate and promote, as I was just mentioning, artists. And we have a myriad of other programs, from our Art in Action program in collaboration with Boys and Girls Club, where we're working with the teens in the Las Vegas Valley. There's 13 clubs, and we're working with the teens there and kind of putting them through a 4-week workshop where they can learn how to design and install their very own mural. We also have our Del Webb Adopt a School program, so that's in partnership with Clark County School District Community Engagement office, and so that's a lot of fun. We'll be there tomorrow, actually, or whenever you're listening to this. We were there on Friday. One random Friday, and I speaking of which, in foundation activities, I had to buy 200 pounds of clay earlier, so
That's
that
amazing.
was an undertaking. People at Hobby Lobby were a little distressed.
Little side note, what will you be creating with all of
it's
that
air
clay?
dry clay, and Becca, who is a previous guest of ours, she's going to be facilitating that. So that's a fun thing that we do with the foundation. Perfect example of how we really like to, our unofficial tagline of collaboration over competition is how can we take the artists that we work with and give them another platform to share those skills, in this case with middle school aged art students. And so Becca's going to be leading a class on air dry clay and making pinch pots, little animals out of pinch pots. So I'm excited. I'm just as much of a student as they are tomorrow. I'm just the guy that got the clay and had to schmooze some people at Hobby Lobby to get the back clay plug.
To get the massive amounts of size for them.
She's like, what are you doing? Are you a teacher? I'm like, why is everyone so upset that I'm buying all this clay? But anyways, that's Graffiti Park Foundation, clay aside, some of the stuff that we do. And Dan and I founded that in 2021. I guess the kind of elevator pitch that I say is we started Graffiti Park, connecting artists to canvases, and we were doing all these projects, and we found that we identified a skills gap between artists that have this awesome skill and technique and talent, but don't have the professional or business acumen to go get jobs on their own, or the patience, and I understand, to work with clients and budgets and do RFPs and stuff. And so we were like, okay, I think there's something here. There's an underserved group where we can provide a service. And then that was kind of how the nonprofit rolled out. And then we brought Miss Anika Jones. I like saying that whole phrase.
I like hearing
every
it,
time. We brought her on about a year ago at this time
Yeah.
as our director of development to help us increase our presence and in the community and amongst other nonprofits and municipalities or for-profits, whatever you got. We got a nonprofit that's looking to partner. If there's something that makes sense. So we find creative solutions to challenges, and so that's who we are. Sorry, that was a long answer.
No,
It was beautifully said.
Well, the first episode, we didn't really get into that. And a lot of what Dan and I are learning is that, our beginning story is, Dan and I, we lived it, we were there, we were part of it. And so as much as we just kind of deal in the now and almost in 6 months from now, it's good to jump back and tell the story of how it all started, because that was our reason, our why of kind of how it all started. And so the Graffiti Park Foundation, which is cool now that we've got, our executive cabinet here. We talk about a lot of things. We try and promote a lot of the artists. As if you've seen any of the content that we've started to put out, a lot of that is to really highlight some of the beautiful souls that we get to work with and some of the extraordinarily talented individuals that are here in the Las Vegas community. And so we'd be remiss if we didn't tell you guys that properly, either on the airways or if you're watching this on a podcast or anywhere that you get your media. This is the Graffiti Park team, or the Graffiti Park Foundation team rather. And we're excited to dive into some fun topics that we think are things that we're noticing as we embark further into this art experience that we are all a part of. And so without further ado, I'll pass it on over to Anika Jones.
Ooh, thank you.
Queen
I'll
of
take
curveballs.
that.
What do you
I
got?
mean, I think it's been a great way. That was a great way to say it. I think it's been a great way of creating not just a community within the group of artists that you've already worked with, but just a sense of community here in Las Vegas. It's really bringing people together, specifically within the schools. Kids being able to see that they're creating a legacy just with these small pieces. We have a couple of different schools where there are different generations of families that are at those schools that can go back and see these pieces or be part of them when we're there working on those murals. So in every aspect, whether we're downtown, whether supporting another event or specifically an artist, if we're doing our own event, we're showing that community is at the forefront of what we've got going on, and we're definitely wanting everybody involved, not just artists, but people who appreciate art as well. So you guys have done an amazing job of that before I even got on board. So it was really just kind of bringing all those people together and saying, hey, what's next? What is our next chapter? And I don't know. I guess we'll see that in the next couple of weeks.
And we're writing it. No,
Writing it in stone, my friends.
Well, yeah. Hot topics. We got 25 on here.
I mean, this man works.
We're not going to touch on all 25, but are there any that stood out to you guys, or just us talking right now, that makes you want to talk about it more?
Well, we talked about the business of Graffiti Park and the foundation of that. And so one of the topics on here is the business of art and how artists can make a living without compromising their vision. And so I like to say a lot of what we do at Graffiti Park is we act as a little bit of that conduit to ensure that the client's satisfaction is met and that all of their visions are, come to life, and that also that the artist gets to explore their creativity and use their professionalism and experience on that front to create something that's visually appealing for everybody else to look at. And so what we've run into recently, I would say Dan can kind of attest to this on some of the operation stuff, is that some of the artists do take it a little personally when their first render doesn't necessarily get approved.
I can imagine.
And so, we love to have those conversations, and Dan always says we've got real thick skin to handle all of those.
I say that to the client. I'm like, we have thick skin. You can tell us you hate it. We'll figure out how to tell the artist.
Yeah. And relaying those that information and that to the artists, and that it's not personal, and that it's so Dan, I'm going to pass it on over to you. How can artists make a living without compromising their vision?
I think this is a great topic. I think this is our bread and butter. Both from a for-profit and nonprofit side. And I think, and I may mention that several times throughout this episode, because it's a double-edged sword almost, right? Because you have a for-profit, and so some people are like, wait, I thought you guys had a nonprofit. And that's admittedly an image we've had to clarify. I don't want to say combat, but something we've had to clarify, in the community and other artists that we haven't worked with, or other groups, and helping them understand we have both. Two things can be true at the same time, and there's a time and a place for both. So, on the for-profit side, from like a actual how can you, art and business, I think, and I want to highlight, and it was said by almost, if not all of our guests, most of the 7 guests that we've had. And one of the things they really highlighted that I appreciated was there's 2 types of art. There's art I make for myself. And, I think Becca said, no one will ever see that, and then there's art I make for clients. And Black did a good job of highlighting that, of, the starving artist and then the working artist, that whole comparison he made. And so I think it's important to recognize that if you're going to be a professional artist, Black calls it your draftsmanship. Can you do a logo exactly how someone has it? You didn't design that logo, but they're not paying you to put your creative spin on it,
right.
And the fact of the matter is, you're not Picasso. Someone's not in the market for you, or they're not looking for a Bassier. They're looking for their vision and you to kind of extrapolate that. And so I think, when it comes to art and business, that to me has been the biggest lesson, biggest standout, is working at, and Dan mentioned, some newer artists having their feathers ruffled a little bit when it comes to the design process. And I can totally understand, like, when you put your heart and soul and hours into a design, does, what I don't want to hear. No, I don't want to hear, oh, I hate it. Let's scrap it. That's not really what I was looking for. Well, okay, I just spent hours working on it. And it's like, you have to recognize that, don't hate the player, hate the game. Like,
exactly.
That's the name of the game. Don't, it's just, okay, well, let's find something that works with, and then there's other ancillary things that you need to consider. Have a good service agreement, so that you're baking in 2 revisions to a rendering, and anything after that's an hourly rate, so that you're, valuing your time on top of that. And I think it also comes with the territory. We've been doing this 5 years now, coming up on our 6th year this fall of actually doing projects. And now Dan and I can identify, like, oh, that client's going to need a service agreement for sure, and that's not an analysis of who they are as a person or personal at all. That's just, we know that they want a very particular thing, so we need to protect our time and our artist time. And I think that's where us as a conduit, as a platform for artists, when you come work with us, that's kind of the value we provide, right? Is, you're not going to go back and forth with the client. You're going to talk to us, and you can speak freely to us, and we're going to be able to translate that. If you're familiar with that bit with Obama and his translator.
Off of the Key and Peele?
Yeah, off of Key and Peele. I believe that's Key. Is of Key and Peele is his translator. So Obama will say something very statesman-like, and then he'll have his impersonator get in there.
For layman's terms?
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's a great way to describe it. How do you, on the other end of it, show the artist to put together a great portfolio, a great body of work to be able to present in a way that that you could be paid for it, and that you feel like you're giving that level of client and artist relations?
It sounds crazy, but the easiest and quickest way for them to do it is Instagram.
Yeah.
And it sucks that is the way, but it's one of the things there's a couple of universal platforms. I would say YouTube, Google, Instagram is another one of those that you can get to on almost any website in any country. And so I would say that's the easiest way. And then following that, there's obviously CVs and portfolios and all sorts of slews of different ways to project your stuff and put it on a website, and you can get down that whole rabbit hole, and that rabbit hole is something that we try to unravel a little bit through the Graffiti Park catalog, and we've got videos on some of those, and Dan's teaching a class coming up here in like a week about it, and so I think that's definitely the first way, and the way that we've honestly found a lot of these artists has always been through Instagram. And so if nothing else, start there.
I mean, Dan and I have a joke. I'm going to refer to some pop culture videos here. So if you're not in, I've already done one. So if you're not in tune, I apologize.
Ladies and gentlemen,
we're giving you homework.
The Dans.
But you can see that's how we communicate via memes and GIFs. But another thing is just the video I was talking about is he's making fun of Gary Vee, who's pretty big on making content. And it's this guy who's trying to make shawarma, and he's making fun of Gary Vee's like, "Are you making content? He's like, no, I'm making shawarma. He's like, no, but are you making content? And he's like, no, I'm making shawarma. And so the joke there is, Dan and I always say, like, are you making content? And it's like feels like sometimes half of the day we're making content for our platforms.
Yeah.
And so to Dan's point, like, people don't know what they don't know. So, and we try our best. Like if you look at our iPads, or we have little brochures that we bring to clients, and it's our entire portfolio of all these different artists. And so they kind of have, okay, I really like that one. So it's like, okay, then we'll get that artist to design this.
Yeah.
Or, if we find different themes, like if there's artists that are really good at scenes or, landscapes, it's like, we know if that's what the client's looking for, we know where to point. And I think that it also lends to another point, and kind of how we got started is that's kind of the Graffiti Park Foundation is, the nonprofit side of things is if you need a space to come paint, we have a place at the Lead Boys and Girls Club off of Sahara in Decatur. You can reach out to us on Instagram, and we have opportunity for you to paint. We have used paint. We call them scrap cans. We sell them at a discount. You can buy new paint. You can bring your own paint, and you can come and practice. And so our first 18 months in operation were these, we call them CCAPs, community collaboration art projects, where Dan and I are coming out of our own savings to pay for paint and supplies and stuff. And, an artist would come and try out. And we've heard that from a couple artists too. Oh, I heard my buddy invited me to the school, and so I came and painted. And so it's, we'll try our best to find you, and you can reach out to us. And if we can see that you're awesome on Instagram, like, we're going to put you in the Rolodex. At the same time, reach out and come practice and get to that point. And, we're looking to find ways to have more of those CCAP type projects, and looking for strategic partnerships. So if you're interested, if you're looking or have a space that's that's visible or whatever, and you don't care what kind of art, or you care what kind of art, but the quality of that art can vary. Like, we're always looking for opportunities to give artists that chance to kind of build their portfolio. And I think that's a part of it, is if you can't build it yourself, we want to give you a chance to help build you that portfolio, give you the skills. And
and certainly give you the opportunity to take one of these classes to learn how to do so. Be able to highlight your best work, and just a lot of things that I've seen you guys be able to roll out in the last couple of years that have been really beneficial to the industry. What are some other maybe tips or ideas for artists who are wanting to get involved in some of the things that we've got going on, whether that's from an artist perspective or from a teaching perspective?
So, not a shameless plug, but next Wednesday, so if you're listening to this before Wednesday, February 12th, we have a free class, 7 p.m. at that Lead location, and it's how to apply for mural jobs. And so we're going to talk and cover and I think the first thing is, so we have that class. It's an hour long. There's going to be a Q&A. We're going to kind of showcase everything we've learned in 5 years of doing this, and the hundreds of thousands of square feet we've been able to paint. And so if you've identified, you have the skill set, you have the portfolio, but you don't know how to apply for these jobs, then that might be a good opportunity. And also, recognize Clark County offers these types of classes, City of Las Vegas when they can. And so, utilize your resources would be the first step. If you're listening after, we will have that available on our YouTube that you can go watch. Other than that, though, I think I kind of just answered, going back a little bit, like, you got to identify what you need to upskill yourself on. And this also goes back to just having thick skin. Like, some artists need to be told no on their designs. And that's not, I'm, again, like, beauty's in the eye of the beholder 100%, but not from a paying client.
True.
And so I think you have to recognize, like, maybe if I shouldn't be trying to get commissioned mural jobs if I don't know how to have a clean workspace, or, so if you need help on how to prep a space or what material to buy, identify that. We can point you in the right direction, either via a free class or just tell you, whatever it might be. So,
isn't that like more about channeling and knowing your audience and being able to kind of understand, like, okay, I want to go after mural installation projects solely right now.
Sure.
Knowing how to channel that particular client opposed to going after everybody hoping that they want a mural installation. Like you guys have shown in different ways too through these classes how to kind of scale that and find what that journey is for you as an artist. Do you find that that's a little difficult too, to kind of get an artist to say, hey, this is what's like making you money? Like I know you love making these sculptures over here, but this over here is making you money and this is good for you. So maybe that's your pleasure piece. And then over here, maybe focus that way and like deal with your artists. I mean, with your clients in that way.
Yes and no, but in a lot of ways, like we're teaching all of these artists how to do exactly what we're doing at the caliber we're doing. Like the whole purpose of Graffiti Park is not to take all of the mural jobs or to become this giant entity that oversees it all, but it's more so to bolster up our community to where they feel like they're confident and able and willing to go out and do the work at the caliber that it should be done at, I think, which is important to notice. And so like for Dan and I, it's no skin off our back if you don't want to work with us. You know, it's no skin off our back if you just want to show up for some of the classes or secretly watch our videos or something. You know, like that's no skin off our back. We're teaching you the skills that Dan and I have learned the hard way. And the whole premise behind this is not, again, to be that entity, but it's to show that eventually when we build this Graffiti Park, when we have this place where we can teach all these classes, where you can come in for free, where you don't have to look over your shoulder of like, who's eyeing me for spray painting and learning a skill that can be translated into a very lucrative career for some, you know? So I think that's really important to highlight that we're not here to monopolize, to do any of that. We're here to cultivate a space in a community where people feel like they're able to do that. And, for anybody listening, know that that's the impetus, that's our why, that's what we're working towards, that's where we're going.
That collaborative sort of effort, I think, helps people channel that network for themselves. And maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's why people are so kind of not really finding their space in their audience, because they don't really have a community, a collaborative effort to work with to say, hey, you know, I'm seeing you're doing really well over here. Maybe focus on that. Or maybe like, you know, I know some people who might be into that you could work with.
I think there's two things I want to add to that. To Dan's point, not only are we, you know, trying to create that community that you're talking about, I think, you know, admittedly, like we're trying to make it as turnkey as possible for you. You know, you and anyone who's worked with us on a commission job knows, you know, once like we're going to work with the client, you're going to show up, it's going to be prepped. We're going to have the paint ready for you. You're literally showing up and painting your piece. And any other artist that's doing it on their own, you know, you're paying for your own insurance. You're paying for your own workers' comp. You're paying the scissor lift fee. You got to buy all the paint, and all that's coming out of that bid for that job. And so, you know, we're trying to make it to where there is a benefit. You know, it's by all means, go take what we've learned. We're going to tell you what we've learned. Go get your own stuff. But we also want to create the opportunity for you to recognize, like, oh, it's fun working, and then that also adds to what you were just talking about. That collaborative aspect is, you know, we just did a project and I'll just leave names and location out, but we just did a project that had 6 different artists on it. And, you know, one of the artists we use Discord for our communication. And one of the artists said, I love working with you guys. I always feel so much more creative. Like I want to do more fun projects like this. And this is an artist that, you know, he's a graffiti artist at heart, and, you know, and we can get into the whole vandalism Graffiti Park or graffiti thing, because we have about 6 minutes left, and I want to touch that because I think that's a fun, hot topic and relates to what we're talking about. But that's him expressing, you know, hey, I feel more creative and I feel welcomed and included in this environment. And like that's, you know, if we had little testimonials to kind of summarize the environments we're trying to create at these projects, like that's one I would point to is, you know, we want to make you feel creative. We want you to show up. We want it to be fun and easy. Like create the art, focus on that. Like I don't want you having to track down a City of North Las Vegas business license, and then that's why you're not doing the project.
Exactly.
You know? And all those things are important and necessary in your journey if you want to be that professional, self-sufficient artist. And we'll teach you how to do that too. But if that's not where you're at, like, come on over.
Yeah.
Water's warm.
Well, it was warm for me. I mean, the very first thing that I said as soon as we started was, how can I contribute? And, communicating with people and being able to connect with people is something that I do well, and be able to do it on this platform is something that I have valued very much so, and I'm sure that the artists have as well. So you definitely have shown me that creativity and that space for a platform as well.
Well, that's awesome, and let's dive into that a little bit, because I think one of the coolest things that you get to talk about as the director of development for the foundation is it vandalism, is it graffiti, is it, and that's something I think that is a hot topic, because everybody loves to point to vandalism or graffiti or yada yada. But Dan, what is your take on it? What is your
I'll try to be
as brief as possible.
Concise. I think there's a time and a place. Like, we're by no means, we intentionally chose Graffiti Park as a name because we wanted to elevate graffiti artists and street artists. And that's a whole debate. Is it street art or is it graffiti? Whatever. I'm not here to debate that. But we wanted to elevate the individuals that had that talent, gain those skills via graffiti, that want to become professional artists or get commissioned for their work or dive into that space. If you're a graffiti writer that wants to be a traditional graffiti writer and live by the rules of the graffiti street world, like that's a community that's existed, and we can get into, that's a whole separate podcast, like, exists there. Like, awesome, but there's also this other untapped market where you can exist and not work a 9 to 5. And so that's what we're trying. So to me, it's like, I think the bigger question is vandalism art, and that you could just kind of depends. I think it's a gray area.
Well, I think the only gray area is space and legalities, right?
Yeah.
So if we're providing a space for you, and that space is allowing you to come and express your art, that is the difference. And being able to show people that, and them seeing that, hey, we put this here, we wanted this here, and we wanted to invoke some sort of emotion out of you. That emotion might not be positive, but we wanted you to feel something from what we feel by creating this art. And that's really, no pun intended, that's the art of it all, is people's reaction and the community that's built around that. So if we can create that space for you, if we can make it legit for you in the sense that it's legal and that it pays you and it's a living that you are proud of, I mean, who has a problem with that?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. And there's also, there's people that, like I was saying, like, committed to I'm a writer, I'm a graffiti writer, like, heck yeah, man.
You set the foundation, my friend.
Like that's you. The world is your oyster, as I like to say. So, yeah. I mean, if you want a place you can come paint, we got it. But I think it's. I really like what you said. We're doing it to make you feel something.
Yeah.
That's Stephen Pressfield has a really good book. It's like, I think it's something like "What Is Art" or something like that. Fact check me if you're watching this. We'll put the actual title there. Hold on, I gotta hear you pull that up so I can finish my. Anyway, Stephen Pressfield, he's got this awesome book, and then he pretty much boils down to, like, what is art, and it's something that evokes emotion, makes you feel something. Could be positive, could be negative, and so the whole idea is graffiti art, is vandalism art. Does it make you feel something? And so there you go. The War of Art. Thank you.
I have heard of that.
Well,
the thing, we're always talking about art too from the viewer's perspective. It's a voice. And being able to provide that voice, being able to express that voice, and be able to have a space and a platform for that, that's what we stand for. And I'm glad to be a part of that.
Yeah, and that was a quick 30 minutes. I'm a little sad. We're going to be doing more of these, Hot Topic, just the core solid foundation team coming at you and covering more of these 25. We covered 2 of the 25, so we're off to a good start. If you are interested in finding more about Graffiti Park, you can find us on Instagram at Graffiti Park _LV. You can also find us at graffitipark.org. You can find us and listen to us on Spotify, Apple Music, and in some months' time, you'll be able to find this on YouTube and our Instagram. And so he's the man behind the lens. A little shout out to Mr. Sean McGuire.
Sean and on and on.
Thank you.
And on and on.
You can't hear him,
Content.
but he's here. He's doing laps around us. It's been a fun time. We hope you have a great week. month, afternoon, and we'll see you next time.
Signing off.